My ex-wife vanished 14 years ago, leaving our autistic son with me. When his intricate sculptures sold for $4.5 million at a New York gallery auction, she returned with a lawyer, eyes sharp and smile practiced. I said, let her take what she wants, but Ethan whispered, Dad, let me handle this. The hearing room in Hamilton County smelled of polished wood and faint ozone from the old HVAC system. The air conditioner droned like a distant engine. Sophia sat 3 rows ahead in a charcoal suit, posture perfect, never glancing back. Her attorney, polished and quick, kept leaning in with folded papers like he was dealing a winning hand. My lawyer, David Harlan, murmured close. She can petition for guardianship, biological mother. She'll argue Ethan's condition makes him unable to manage assets responsibly. My chest tightened. 14 years of steady hands and sleepless nights, and now this. Let her have it, I thought, because the fight had worn me thin, and I feared losing Ethan in the glare of a courtroom. David hesitated. Ethan. Ethan's fingers rested lightly on my sleeve. Steady. He stared at the table's wood grain, tracing patterns only he could see. He leaned in, voice calm, flat, the tone people sometimes misread as cold. Let me handle this. That whisper dragged me back to the night Sophia left our modest 2-story in Fishers. It was mid-October. Wind howled through the eaves. Rain tapped the windows like Morse code. I'd just come home from a shift at the steel mill, still smelling of sparks and grease. Ethan was 4, no speech yet, just patterns. Same blue blanket folded exactly the same way, same episode of a nature documentary on low volume, same apple sliced into 8 equal pieces, skin on. Sophia came in late, perfume sharp, citrus and something expensive. The door closed too firmly. Ethan flinched, hands flying to his ears. Rocking began quick and tight. He made that small rising hum that meant overload was coming. Sophia, I said, voice low. Easy, I'm in my own house, Daniel. She kicked off her shoes. One skidded across the hardwood. I'm done pretending. I knelt beside Ethan on the rug, humming the low note he liked. My shoulder brushed his. His rocking slowed, breath trying to match mine. Sophia watched us like we were a puzzle she'd outgrown. Look at you, she said. You're disappearing into him. The words cut deep. Because I had been shrinking my life to fit his, because someone had to. What's this really about? I asked. She grabbed her purse. Keys jingled. I met someone. He's stable. He has a loft in Denver, mountains, a real future. A real future, I repeated. Her eyes flashed. I'm 35. I'm not wasting the rest of my life here, tied to this. This is your son, I said, pointing gently. Ethan peeked through his fingers, eyes wide, trying to decode her tone. She flinched like the word burned. He's my son, she echoed, but it sounded hollow. Ethan stood and reached for my hand. I gave it. Sophia looked past him. You take him. You're good at this. I'm not good at it, I said, voice shaking. He's my father. She paused. Then she moved. Down the hall, closet door squeaking, suitcase zipper rasping. Headlights flooded the living room. A black sedan idled outside, rain streaking the windshield. You already called him, I said. She didn't answer. She came back with a small bag, face set like she'd already moved on. Ethan stood in the doorway, clutching his blanket, making a tiny questioning sound. She didn't kneel, didn't touch his hair. She paused at the door, cold air rushing in. For a second, I waited, for anything. You'll be fine, Daniel, she said. You always are. Then she stepped into the rain. The sedan door shut. Taillights faded down the street. I stood in the doorway holding Ethan while the documentary narrator droned on about migrating birds. My hand shook. His body trembled against my chest. That night, I sat at the kitchen table, staring at the schedule on the fridge. Therapy Mondays, speech Thursdays, and realized every line was mine now. I didn't know then that Ethan would find peace in metal and wire, that his sculptures, tiny, precise cities built from salvaged parts, would one day command millions. All I knew was a mother had left and a boy had watched her go. 14 years later, Sophia came back smiling like she'd lost a phone, not a child. After our first meeting with David, I kept things steady. I set out Ethan's tools in exact rows: pliers, cutters, tiny screwdrivers. In the quiet garage we'd turned into his workshop, the only sounds were the soft clink of metal and the hum of the workbench light. Ethan worked carefully, eyes down. Then he spoke without looking up. "We should meet her again." My stomach dropped. "Ethan, you don't have to." He lifted his gaze, steady. "Yes, public place, one more time." I learned early that raising Ethan meant learning a new language of routines, small adjustments, and quiet endurance. Mornings started at 6:03 a.m. precisely, not 6, not 6:05. If the clock was off, his shoulders crept up and his breath went shallow. Coffee brewed 4 minutes. Toast cut into 4 perfect squares. If they weren't even, he didn't yell. He froze, eyes searching for an exit. So I learned, I adjusted, I slowed. The world was loud. Grocery stores with buzzing lights and squeaking carts, malls with music and crowds. Ethan wore noise-canceling headphones and still came home exhausted. People stared. A woman once said, "He needs discipline." I smiled like she'd offered sympathy. We survived. One therapy session, one meltdown, one night at a time. IEPs where words flew like shrapnel. I nodded like I understood. Bills stacked in a drawer. My hands grew rougher from millwork and late-night repairs. Sophia never called, not for birthdays, not when Ethan spoke his first full sentence at 8, not when he sold his first sculpture at 16 and stood there, quiet and proud. She sent nothing, no cards, no messages. It was sculpture that gave him calm. I found him one afternoon in the garage with a box of old hardware, bending wire into delicate arches. He wasn't making toys or models. He built tiny cities, precise, balanced, every piece measured. The metal clicked softly. The lamp cast warm light. I watched from the doorway and didn't interrupt. From then on, building became routine. After school, before dinner, same bench, same light. He lined tools by size. When he worked, the world faded. The phone could ring. The TV could blare. He didn't flinch. His subjects were odd. A rusted gate on an abandoned factory, the numbers on a utility pole, a crack in concrete that looked like a river. He wasn't imagining, he was documenting. Teachers noticed. An art teacher at the high school pulled me aside. "Your son sees what others miss." I nodded. I'd known that for years. When the gallery in New York called, I thought it was a mistake. The woman on the line spoke carefully. Auction, collectors, numbers that didn't fit in my head. $4.5 million. I sat down hard. Ethan kept building. The money didn't change him. He asked where money went, who decided, why people fought over things they didn't create. Then Sophia returned. Letters from her lawyer arrived thick and official. David read them at my kitchen table while Ethan worked in the garage, tools clicking. "They'll argue guardianship," David said. "Say he's vulnerable." Heat rose in my neck. "He's not a child." "I know," David said, "but the court might not." That night, Ethan didn't build. He sat at the table with old folders, school reports, therapy notes, medical forms. He sorted them by date, smoothing each page. "Dad," he said, not looking up, "when someone leaves, do they leave rights behind too?" My throat tightened. "It depends." "On what?" "On whether they come back," I said, wishing I hadn't. He nodded like he'd measured something. Later he asked, "If money is for care, who decides what care is?" I had no good answer. Over days, I noticed small things. He asked for copies of letters. He asked about words like fiduciary. He asked who kept originals. Once I found him measuring a photo of Sophia with a caliper, then noting the date in neat print. I told myself it was anxiety. One night I heard the chair scrape. I padded to the kitchen. Under-cabinet light glowed. Ethan sat surrounded by papers, sorting into piles. "Ethan," I said softly, "it's late." "I know." He slid a single page toward me. "I want an independent trustee, not your lawyer, not hers." "Why?" "So no one thinks I told you what to do." I stared at the paper, then at my son, the boy I'd carried through crowds, the teenager who spoke quietly, now thinking ahead of grown men. "What are you planning?" He shook his head. "Not planning, preparing." Sophia suggested the diner. "Neutral," she texted. "Public, safe for Ethan." We met at the Blue Ribbon on 31st. Vinyl booths, coffee that tasted like it had been there since the 90s. The bell jingled, plates clinked. Sophia stood when we entered, smoothing her suit. Perfume hit me first, sharp, expensive, out of place among grease and toast. "Daniel," she said softly. "Hi." She turned to Ethan, smile wide. "Hey, sweetheart." Ethan slid into the booth beside me, set his sketchbook down, aligned it perfectly. His eyes scanned the table, napkin holder, ketchup bottle, Sophia's keys with a fancy fob. Her attorney, Richard, arrived. Sharp handshake, sharp watch. He sat close to Sophia. "Mr. Hayes, we want cooperation for Ethan's best interest." Ethan's pen moved. Scratch, pause, scratch. Sophia leaned in. "I know I made mistakes. I was young, scared. I didn't understand what Ethan needed, but I've changed. I have stability now. I want to be